we're thinking the best thing might be this medication. But of course, you can vote. What you don't want is the WHO determining that in the next pandemic they have the right to implement by their votes contained within the WHO like lockdown measures, medication measures, which is something that they're lobbying for currently, I understand. Less and less democracy, more and more ability for unelected globalist, I would have to say globalist organizations to assert political influence over nations. And that's what we saw here. And like when you know that the WHO's second biggest funder is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and he invests so heavily into these vaccines, again, like stuff that gets called conspiracy theory, but you can look at the evidence is there.
The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation profited millions of dollars on the vaccines. Millions and millions of dollars. It's all easy to find. And then once he dumped the stock, then he completely changed his narrative and he started talking about how ineffective the vaccines were and about how the virus wasn't as bad as we thought it was and about it was mostly targeting old and obese people. Like, this is fucking wild because this is the same guy that through the entire pandemic was talking about how great these vaccines are and these vaccines are so effective and they stop the virus and they stop transmission, they stop infection, and all that was a lie. And he profited off those lies.
Yes.
And everyone wants to pretend that he's just like this amazing philanthropist. Like, no, he made a lot of money. This is motivated by money, and his entire career he's been motivated by money. I mean, he's been a guy who is really good at monopoly, and that was why they went after Microsoft so many times for monopolistic practices. I mean, he's a businessman, and in that time, his business was the business of telling people things that he's not educated in. All right, he's not a scientist. He's not a virologist. He's not a medical doctor. Yet he was this public health advocate on television telling everybody to go out and get this medical intervention that he would profit from, which is fucking wild. It's really wild that it's that transparent, that it's not like multiple steps and shell corporations and it's really difficult to find out where the money's going. It's like right there. It's like the Nancy Pelosi stock trading thing. It's like, Jesus Christ, it's right there. Like you knew, and so you did that and sold, and you did that and bought, and you've made hundreds of millions of dollars off of $100,000 a year salary. Like what the fuck is going on? This is crazy how transparent it is. You're not even hiding it. It's right there.
I suppose the only way you can prevent those questions being addressed is by making the people asking those questions uncredible, like to discrediting those people, because otherwise it is plain. Bill Gates ain't Willy Wonka. He ain't doing this for like a competition. There's no golden ticket at the end of this. It's like, not-for-profit organizations making profit, an incredible amount of influence in areas that he profits from, all sorts of peculiar business practices like in India and on the continent of Africa that have led to like palpable suffering and profit in his case.
The Africa thing is wild, and that's a big part of this, the real Anthony Fauci book. He talks about Bill Gates quite a bit, and one of the things he talks about is how they've always used Africa as a place where they test out medicines. They've used Africa as a place where they test out. And this is another thing that I learned from Alex Jones. Alex Jones was saying that they were giving kids the polio vaccine in Africa, and that Bill Gates was involved in this, and they had to stop doing it because it was actually giving kids polio. And I was like, what? And they pull up an AP article. There was an AP story about this, and it shows this terrified little African baby, and they're dropping the polio vaccine in his mouth, like squeezing his face, dropping his mouth. I'm like, what the fuck, man? They gave kids polio with a vaccine?
Even when you accept everything that they say at this late point when it appears impossible to do that, they wouldn't release patents so that African nations could recreate the vaccines over there. So clearly there's a profit motive. And I saw him publicly talk about that and saying, oh, no, it's not as simple as that. You can't just give people the patents and stuff. But it seems like if you recognize that what drives them always is power, finance and dominion, if you always look at that and then track their actions, you hardly ever see a disruption in that pattern.